Hello and welcome to CEO Insights from Quantum Leaders, where we take the living organization perspective of an organization as a living being to be developed, as opposed to a machine to be programmed and controlled. I say that provocatively because the foundation of our work is shifting the paradigm of a leader who is looking at organization as an organic living entity. And if it is a living entity, then the first thing we realize that it is really difficult to program a living entity. If you ever try to program your children or control your children to produce their KPIs, or your partner, or you very much understand that this is almost impossible. Living beings do not operate in that mechanical way. It has happened in the past with post-industrial revolution, the Taylorism, when we created industrial production lines, and it worked really well in the 40s and 50s and gave us phenomenal productivity gains. We treated the organization as a production line, and engineers like me, I'm an engineer, developed very strict guidelines and designs and programs to increase the productivity and efficiency of that entity, which was very much viewed as a mechanical entity. People were very low educated, well, at least mid-level education. And so it worked because it didn't require the kind of flexibility, agility, and the volatility wasn't to the level that we have now. Now, unfortunately, we have still maintained that level of perception, if you like, even unconsciously. Me as a young MBA, I remember studying how management theories, and they were all based on optimization, ratio analysis, really heavy quantitative approach. And the design or the blueprint for the organization was developed at the top, and then the managers basically, they were the thinkers, and then the assumption is then people just go and execute. It just doesn't work anymore, in particular in a post-industrial information or post-information revolution, where people need to think for themselves, where agility is number one focus, where our markets are constantly changing. That means adapting to the environment is critical. And machines cannot adapt by themselves. Only people can adapt to environments. So what if we now take an approach of organization as a living being, and automatically, if we think about it, then we start to think, how do we develop this living being? And we know that as CEOs, as leaders, inherently in our gut, most of us know that it is important to develop our people. But what happens is the business agenda, the sales targets, the revenue targets, the product and product launch timetables, the pressure from the board to return the investment, to produce the ROIs, this all takes over. And while it's all well intentioned to develop the people, we at the end we shortcut it, and we just go straight to how do we produce the result, and how do we hire new people who can do it and fire the old people who can't. The reality is, if you really think about it, and this is a game theory, if you ever done any game theory analysis, the reality is most of the time the people we're going to hire are going to be slightly under the capacity and under the capability level of the job they need to do. Why? Because if they were so brilliant, they'll either start their own business if they had all the amazing skills, or they'll go to usually the top guy in the industry, the whatever, the Googles or the Amazons or the highest paid. Most of us are in the companies that are not the Googles and not the shining brands of the industry. And so we find it difficult to attract. So what we attract is, not quite second rate, but people who are a few notches below the capability that we would ideally love to do. I'd love to employ. So what that means is automatically, right, your organization overall is going to be a few notches down the development, the capability part. And that's okay. right? If it's too low, then yes, we have a big problem because it's really hard to stretch, right, to close that gap. But if it's two or three, kind of levels down, it's okay. The first thing we need to do, we need to assess that. We need to create a developmental assessment plan for the organization to see, and not just for the people, but our processes up to the par, up to the best standards of the result we want to achieve. It doesn't mean we have to compare ourselves with the very top in the industry or the very top across other things. We just need to ascertain what is the level of system maturity that we need to achieve our financial result or expansion in certain markets, whatever the corporate objectives are. So the systems are number one. Now, secondly, of course, is the business model, right? Is our business model up to the par in terms of maturity, the digitalization, the go-to-market strategies, the innovation in our business model? Is it up to date with the current, with the result we want to create? Again, it's not comparing yourself to others. It's just, is it capable of producing the kind of result we are after? Right? So that's business model maturity. And then, of course, there is people and leadership maturity. Okay, so let's think of it as 4 different levels of developmental maturity. So we have the systems, we have the business model, and then we look at leadership and people. Now, leadership maturity, I've spent years assessing leadership maturity as a leadership assessment consultant for large companies, hundreds of leadership interviews. It's a tricky business, right? Once again, we can do it through surveys, and we can definitely do quantitative and qualitative analysis, but also you can just interview the people, and if you're an experienced manager, you will actually see the level of their business management maturity by putting them under pressure or asking them really difficult questions and see how they react, right? So that's what we do actually in Quantum Leaders. One of the things we do is we assess leaders for how mature they are. 0 to 5 levels, right? Let's say 0 level is extremely directive, single-minded, individual, almost a military commander, doesn't have much flexibility in terms of his leadership style, usually resorts to carrot and stick approach. I think you do, which is what I started with, which is the conventional view of the machine-based management. These people can be extremely technically brilliant, and you know them. I mean, they're very high IQ, intelligent people often with lots of experience, so they're very valuable in the organization, but they are not flexible. And so as we start to shift towards faster ways, a more professional way of operating, a more agile, more customer-focused way of operating our company, these people typically hold us back. And so we need to assess those people and see, A, do they want to move to another level of operating as a leader? B, do they want to leave? Or C, do they want to take a less prominent position in a company? I'm trying to be really politically correct, right? So maybe they are a great technical manager, but they're not good manager to take the company or their department to a future level, right? So this is the 3 choices we give them in terms of maturity. And then those who are really open towards developing, then we create individual and collective developmental programs for them, which I can talk about in the next series. B, the people. Once again, people are also 0 to 5 level, let's say. 0 are extremely basically rigid. They want to be told what to do. They don't think for themselves. They don't particularly care about anybody else but themselves. As long as they do their job, they feel it's fine. They're not collaborative. And of course, 5 is exactly the opposite. They're there for everybody. They're extremely valuable in terms of skills. They're always learning. They're a real team player. They're still can be competent individuals, but they were always willing to help others and believe when you help the company, when you support the company, when the company succeeds, they succeed as well. And I see the intimate interconnections of everything in the company. It's the same with leaders. The leaders who only worry about their silo, their departments, usually are low maturity leaders, and the high maturity leaders, they work as a CEO mentality. They believe that everybody needs to pull together if the company is to achieve its business results. So now you understand that we have a multiple level of maturity. And if you look at organization as a living being, you'll naturally start to develop a developmental plan for each one of those four elements of the organization: the people, the leaders, the systems, and the business models. If you have that in place, and sometimes it's not all at the same time, you're much more likely to succeed in reaching your business targets. Thank you so much. And please please share this if you find it interesting. And I'll look forward to speaking to you individually. Just private message me on LinkedIn, or through quantumleaders.com. Quantumleaders.com is our website. Be happy to actually work with you on your specific case.